It's time for more Silent Hill news. Yay, yay, yay. I sat here a year ago, boldly at the time, saying the thing that no one was saying, that I was excited for the Silent Hill 2 remake. And who won, bitch? Who won? Genuinely, at the time, I was very excited for that remake, and then it turned out to be really, 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 really great. So, you know, I'm not gonna say I'm always right, but in that instance I was. And you know what? If all you people who said horrible things to me in the comments still hate the game, I'm sorry you're miserable. I'm sorry. But we're back again. I'm back because there's new Silent Hill news. Yesterday, as of me recording this, there was a Silent Hill transmission from Konami, which is the maybe twice a year-ish little series they do to update the world on what the hell's going on in Silent Hill. So the first Silent Hill transmission came back in October of 2022, which is, 2.5 years ago at this point, which is nuts. And that is when kind of this new era of Silent Hill was born. The Silent Hill 2 remake was announced, Silent Hill Forte was announced, Silent Hill Townfall was announced, that weird live stream one, Ascension? I don't know, she came and went, we don't know her, we don't remember her, and the Silent Hill 2 film were announced. So since then, and a short no, they didn't even include a short message in that transmission. That's how forgettable that game is. Oh my lord. But since then, the Silent Hill 2 remake has come and gone to much fanfare, much love. It appears that Bloober, the team that worked on the remake, has kind of not fully, but pretty much announced, like, we're making another Silent Hill game. So they're probably going to be the team in charge of the remakes. I'm hopeful that they will remake 1, 3, and 4. In my ideal world, they would put 1 and 3 into one game and make it extra long, and then do 4. Really, in my ideal world, they would just go ahead and do 4, because I'm a Silent Hill 4 stanie, and I love that game. It's my favorite game of all time. It's not always fun to play, though. I could use some quality of life updates. But that came and went. We got a little tiny baby short free game before that called A Short Message. It was a game that you can play, for sure. So far, we've gotten like a trailer for the Silent Hill 2 movie. It's a movie, allegedly.
That's hair.
No, it's not. That's a wig.
That's hair.
No, it's not. That's a goddamn wig.
That is hair.
That is a wig, Mary.
Yesterday, we finally got a ton of info about one of the new full-length Silent Hill games, which it looks like it's going to be the first full-length original Silent Hill game since Downpour in 2012, and that would be Silent Hill Forte. I'm going to call it Silent Hill Forte. I don't know. I am unclear. I've seen people arguing on Reddit. Is it Silent Hill F or Silent Hill Forte? I'm calling it Silent Hill Forte because it's a Forte symbol. I played the violin for like a decade, so I'm calling it Silent Hill Forte. Fight in the comments if you wish. We don't have a release date yet, but they came on yesterday to do the first trailer release and just give us some general info about the game. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about what the heck they talked about at transmission and tell you why I, Glitchwitch.jpg, am very, very excited for this game. Who am I? Why do you care? My name is Glitchwitch.jpg. I make videos about internet horror, analog horror, digital horror, creepypasta, internet ARGs, internet urban legends, but the first video I ever made was a love letter to Silent Hill 4, so every once in a while I come on here to yap about Silent Hill, and that's what I'm going to do today, because I'm excited. And the air feels so much different right now than it did before the Silent Hill 2 remake. There's a wave of positivity and kindness and excitement, and it feels so good, because that was not the energy before the Silent Hill 2 remake. Silent Hill Forte is a unique little game already, because it is going to be the first Silent Hill game not set in America, and it's also going to be chronologically the oldest setting, because it's set in the 1960s in rural Japan. So traditionally, Silent Hill games have always taken place in America, except for the short message, but she don't really count. In this town of Silent Hill, it's weird. I'm going to talk about the setting more because that is definitely like later. I'm going to talk about the setting more later because that's definitely a hot topic when it comes to Forte and its place in the series. So I'm going to save that a little bit for later. But the creators have said it is a standalone game. You don't have to have played other Silent Hill games to enjoy this game, which I think is very smart because we're getting whole new generations of Silent Hill fans that maybe played the remake of Silent Hill 2, which we all know Silent Hill 2 is one of the least connected to the overarching story of Silent Hill. So I think it's good that they're, coming out with the first mainline game since Downpour, kind of standing alone. I think that was a smart move. What is Forte about? Forte, like I said, it's going to take place in 1960s rural Japan in a town called, forgive me for the way I pronounce these names. I am but a dumb American. I'm from Michigan and now live in the South, so I have the worst accent known to man. I'm gonna butcher these Japanese names. I will say, I'm entering my weeaboo era. It's happening at the ripe old age of almost 30. It took me this long because I finally started watching anime. I've only seen Berserk and Neon Genesis Evangelion, but I'm hooked. My husband and I have been playing the Yakuza games, and now this is happening. So everywhere around me is Japanese culture. So I'm trying, but I am so far from being an expert, it's not even funny. But anyway, yes, it is set in the fictional town of Ebisugoka, which is based off of a real town. They talked about this at length in the transmission. The real town is called Kanayama Gero, and it's in the Gifu prefecture. And they actually showed in the transmission that they went on location, took a lot of pictures. It is literally almost like shot for shot, which I think is really cool. And they recorded a lot of sound of the actual environments. Of course, they had to pare it down to make it make sense in the 1960s. But I think that's really neat. They're really like immersing you in that environment. And our lead character is a girl. We won the first girl in a mainline Silent Hill game since Heather Mason, the only playable girl character in a mainline Silent Hill game. So I'm so excited. Her name is Hinako, and she is our protagonist that we play as, and essentially she gets Silent Hilled. Something happens to her town where we get the fog and the monsters, but then there is also a very unique to this game otherworld as we typically see in Silent Hill. So there's a lot of mystery around the plot still, but there's a huge emphasis on like finding beauty and terror, which I think is really smart because I think that is something Silent Hill has always done. The games are always gorgeous. They're beautiful, both visually, the music, and the story as well. They're tragic, love stories. They're tragic stories of just the human experience. So I think it's great that they're leaning into that they're flat out coming out saying, like, this is the thesis statement, okay? That makes me very excited. And I also think that they're going to play with, what it means to be a young girl, especially in this era. They refer to in the warning that's up on like Steam and the PlayStation Store that there is like period accurate sexism. So I think it's going to be really interesting to explore, what it meant to be, a teenage girl in Japan in the 1960s. And, I'm sure that a lot of that still can echo what women experience today all over the world, not just in Japan. And don't get me wrong, I'm clowning on Silent Hill for only having Heather as the, only playable female character, but the women in Silent Hill games, I think, are always incredibly well-rounded. My cat is playing with a horn, excuse me. This is my cat, Walter. He is named after Walter Sullivan. His sister is named Eileen after Eileen from Silent Hill 4, which maybe not the best written female character in Silent Hill history, but Mary Maria, the cop in Downpour whose name I don't remember, Anne. But you're picking up what I'm putting down. Especially with Heather, they explore what it means to be a woman, what it means to be, a girl in this world, and how cruel the world can be to women. That is an angle I'm really excited about. And one of the interesting things about this game that they talked about at length, because he was literally in the transmission, is the writer of this game. So the screenplay for Forte was written by a beloved Japanese writer who goes by Ryukishi7. And I am not familiar with his work because I'm a dirty, stupid American who is just dipping their toe into like anime and manga and all that. But he is very famous for the visual novel series Higurashi When They Cry, and they spoke about this a lot in the transmission. It's like a very beloved Japanese horror, psychological horror, and honestly, he sounds perfect for Silent Hill, and he clearly is very passionate about the series, and like is really proud to, bring Japan even deeper into the series, which I think is really cool. I think it's really smart, and I think that's such a smart way to bring Japan even more into the series. Because, obviously Silent Hill has always been a Japanese game series. They may be set in America, but, the first 4 games are quintessentially Japanese horror. It's just that they're injecting their view of Western horror as well, which I think they do a good job of as well. And it's interesting because Homecoming and Downpour are the 2 made by American studios, and I love those games. I think they're great. I'm especially partial to Downpour just because I think it's a really unique, interesting game visually. And those are very much the American Silent Hill games. So I think it's really cool that we're going to get the Japanese Silent Hill game. And is it probably going to be better than those 2 games? Yeah, probably, because I feel like taking the Japan out of Silent Hill does, it leaves you wanting a little more. One of the things that Ryukishi mentioned in the stream was wanting to explore these female characters, exploring Hanako and her experience. And I think that's important. I think it's really cool that the screenwriter came out and said that. And it seems like he has a lot of experience writing adolescent girls within his When They Cry series. But I'm super intrigued. I think that it's really cool that they involved him, and of course Akira Yamaoka is back, but they're doing something really interesting with the music. Akira Yamaoka famously has done all the Silent Hill scores since way back in the original Silent Hill, but he's only composing half of this game. They have one composer for the fog world, or the traditional world in the game, and then they have a different composer for the other world. Yamaoka is the one who did the music for the fog world, and then another Japanese composer named Kensuke Inage, who has worked in games for years, did the music for the Otherworld sections of the game, and they called the Otherworld the Dark Shrine or something. And I think that's really cool, and they specifically mentioned that the Otherworld music is more influenced by traditional Japanese music, whereas Akira Yamaoka is Akira Yamaoka. There's no he just is what he is, and that's what you're getting. And he even kind of said that in the transmission, which I thought was really funny. How can you not love him as a Silent Hill fan? In general, I'm pumped for this game. I think it looks really cool. The visuals are really neat. They do have a new designer for the monsters. It's not going to be Masahiro Ito. He did say he is not involved with it at all and doesn't know anything about it. But the designer's name is Kara. And so far, we haven't had any clear shots of the monsters. We've really only seen environments and Hanako. But the monsters look really cool, and they look very Japanese. So I think, just to get into why I'm excited about this, I am thrilled that they're leaning so hardcore into the Japanese you know, style of storytelling, folklore influence, historical influence, and just fully J-horror. I love J-horror as much as I'm joking that, like, oh, I'm stepping my toe into Japanese culture because of, like, getting into anime and stuff. I've loved Japanese horror for a long time. I think they're some of the best to do it. Pulse is like one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I've wanted to make a video about that movie for years because it's such good digital horror. I just love that movie. But there is always that secret sauce in every J horror that we can't even begin to touch over here. It's just not in the cards for Western horror. So seeing them lean fully into that with this game excites me a lot. I think it's going to be one of the weirdest, I think, and maybe most surreal Silent Hill games. From the trailer, you see that they're exploring like shrines and kind of like traditional religious aspects, which I think is really cool because, cult behavior and religions have always been a big part of like the mainline Silent Hill game. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a way that they're going to connect this game to like the wider lore without it being too implicit. Obviously, it's a very different religious setting than we see in like Silent Hill 1, 3, and even 4. But, just having that presence there, I think it's going to be interesting to explore it in a different way. It looks gorgeous. Like, they go into the interior of the like temple, and it's got these big like fox statues and these women in their masks and stuff, and it looks really cool. Like, aesthetically, this looks really neat. The other world is overtaken, instead of like by rust, it's overtaken by like plants, like decaying, rotting meat like red flowers. And that's kind of a visual we've seen since the original teaser in 2022, because who I assume now is Hanako is wearing this almost like May Queen looking floral get up. So, I kind of expected that to tie in. I remember thinking originally that Masahiro Ito's Sakura Blossom monster was going to be in Forte, but she ended up being in Silent Hill Short Message. But I think it's really, feels very Silent Hill in this, the fact that there is your traditional fog, there is your other world, but it's just a different take on it. And you're getting it from this both Japanese perspective and the feminine perspective of it as well. Because as much as we do get Heather's perspective in 3, it's very much driven by how the American Silent Hill already looks. So if we're transferring Silent Hill from being a physical place and more to like a mindset, I think that, gender and femininity could have a lot to do with the way that the other world looks and behaves. And from there, I will, this is kind of a good point to bring in the whole, what is Silent Hill? What are they doing to Silent Hill with the inclusion of a game like this? And honestly, that's like the one, I don't want to say it's a criticism because I think it's an absolutely valid question. But the one, I guess, reservation I'm seeing from people is, how is this going to be a Silent Hill game if it is not set in Silent Hill, the American town? And I think that's a valid question. I understand why people feel very strongly about that. I personally don't. I already think that the American Silent Hill is not one location. Yes, the map is somewhat similar from 1 to 2, and all of that, and even into 3, but it just... with 3, it even feels like Silent Hill finds Heather. It follows Heather. And with 4, it is grounded in that, oh, this is the same location from 1, 2, and 3. But again, we've left Silent Hill. We're not really playing in Silent Hill. We're playing in Walter's amalgamation of Silent Hill, which, we know that Ashfield Heights is close to Silent Hill because Henry's like visited it as a tourist. The timeline is already not great. And then you get into Homecoming, where again, Silent Hill is not the main setting. We're in a sister town. But again, I do understand the defense of, it's still close to Silent Hill the way that like Ashfield is. So I get it. Pretty much all of 1 through Homecoming do kind of put it in one location. We don't really know where, Maine somewhere. 3 leads us to believe. However, the thing that's making me be like, I don't really care is Downpour. And the reason I say that is because the Silent Hill we see in Downpour looks nothing like the rest of the Silent Hills. And I like to believe Downpour introduces this idea that Silent Hill can come to whoever, and whoever needs Silent Hill will experience Silent Hill in their own way. I think it's a shame because a lot of people don't love that game, so they don't, want to consider it, I guess, canon the way that like 1 through 4 is. But I think that's the game that has introduced this idea of Silent Hill being this like mental state that manifests wherever you are. Because Silent Hill in Downpour, there are mountains. It looks like the Pacific Northwest. Oh, that was good timing. My town does a warning signal every Friday. And of course it hit while I'm recording this. It scared the shit out of me. But it's not, there's no way. It looks so different. In every other game, yes, it's basically the same map, maybe tweaked a little bit. But in Downpour, like, I would think that's in, like, Washington State or something, the way that the environment looks. This whole idea of, each individual experiencing Silent Hill in their own way, I believe this is supported by, previous games as well, because the whole idea of the monsters manifesting for the individual person kind of reaffirms that. Like, Pyramid Head is James's monster, right? The nurses are James's monsters. And yes, I know that's kind of thrown out with Homecoming and stuff like that. But, Heather's monsters are very unique to her. They feel very predatory and icky in a way that James's monsters don't. James's monsters feel like almost an excuse for him to beat the shit out of women, especially in the remake, which eventually I'm going to talk about the remake in its own video, because that is a huge part of the remake I want to discuss, is the way that the monsters, exist with James. And, it's, I feel like that 4 it's like half and half. 4 is like some of the strongest monsters in relation to the plot and the psyche of the characters, but they start to just also be generic, which that's the problem as we go on with Homecoming and Downpour. They become very generic, because 4 has to me the strongest Silent Hill monster design ever, which is the twin victims, and that is very much could only exist in this scenario of Walter Sullivan, because Walter Sullivan killed 2 children, and that's the children that are talked about in Silent Hill 2 in the little news article about Walter. And they are the only victims of Walter that do not manifest as ghosts, but rather as a monster. And I like to think about, I mentioned this in my video about Silent Hill 4, but I like to view that as Walter, like, putting them up on a pedestal and trying to protect them in a weird way, because he had such a horrible childhood and was abused so badly when he was a child, that he kind of gave them this, like, special title, this way of kind of revering them by making them into this new creature. And I think that's a great way to relate the monsters to the psychological state of, in this case, the villain. And that's something that makes Silent Hill 4 in general very unique, is that you were getting the villain's world, not the protagonist world. But then you have, ones like the dogs and that is just like, okay, you wanted a dog in there. But the other game whose setting really supports this idea is Silent Hill Short Message. And I, as much as I'm, championing using Downpour as an example here, I do struggle to use Silent Hill A Short Message as like a lore-defining entry into the Silent Hill series, because I didn't like it. It's a short game. It's, I got scared because I thought that was what the future of Silent Hill was going to be. And I think safely I can say between the 2 remake and what we're seeing with Forte, that's probably not the case. But in that game, it's set in Germany, and they discuss Silent Hill as like a disease, almost like a mental illness. Like there's literally, like, she picks up like newspapers that talk about it, which I think is a little too heavy-handed, don't get me wrong. But I do like the idea that this like other plane exists, and that's what Silent Hill is. If you're not okay with that, I respect that. I'm just telling you why I'm like justifying it, I guess, or why it doesn't bother me. But I think that's a valid concern. But I also think this series needs a, you know, shot of electricity straight to the heart so that it can keep going. And I think setting it in Japan will be, you know, that mouth-to-mouth revival. It's all well and good if the remakes rock, but we need the games, the new games, to also rock for this series to continue. I mean, I know no one wants me to compare it to Resident Evil. Everyone gets pissed off when I do that. But Resident Evil has successfully mastered the remake and the new game. At least in my opinion. I love 7 and Village. I think they're great games. And I think Resident Evil 7 did a good job of really bringing the horror back to that series, and I think that this is going to do that as well. But don't get me wrong, I know that Homecoming is often touted as like the American like action game, and it is, you know, both Homecoming and Downpour are definitely more action oriented, but I still think they're quite scary and quite psychological. So I'm not that mad at those games. And I know the winds are shifting on it, and a lot of people like those games as well, so it's okay. I'm just super pumped about this game because everybody else is excited too. Like, it feels really promising. It feels like, oh wait, Silent Hill is here to stay. Like, the remake kind of got us all jazzed because it ended up being really good. And there's the promise of more remakes and just this series becoming accessible to a new generation. And I love that. But I just love that, you know, I scrolled Twitter last night after the transmission and everybody was excited, which is just so different from, you know, how we were a year and a half ago. And it's just so promising. And I'm so excited that a series that I love, you know, is getting a second chance at life. And I'm really, really hopeful. And I don't hate the idea of having every once in a while these kind of off to the side games where they explore Silent Hill in different locations. Do I think that that's sustainable, like, infinitely? Not necessarily. I think the reason that this is going to work so well is because it is Japan, and these games are so quintessentially J-horror. And I think that's part of the reason why Short Message didn't work, is it felt kind of random setting it in Germany. I think that could have been set in America. I really don't know. I don't know if it was their like soft launch of putting Silent Hill somewhere other than America. I don't think it was necessary, whereas this story could only exist in Japan. Ryu Kishi has written this as a quintessentially Japanese story. He has drawn from the environment, he has drawn from the history, the culture, the folklore. It just makes sense. And that DNA is already in the series, so it just works. You know, maybe they'll kind of have 2 paths going forward. Well, they'll have the traditional American Silent Hill setting, and then maybe they'll keep making Japanese games. I'm not sure. It will probably all depend on, you know, how this game is received. But I think it's promising. I think it's going to bring new life into the series. And I am excited, again, to finally have a female protagonist. I think that's really important because, again, this series is really good at telling, you know, female stories, but it's just been so long since we've had a female lead. And I, you know, it makes sense. I get why. I don't actually. I was gonna say I get why 4 had a male lead, but honestly, I think 4 would have probably been a stronger game if like Eileen had been the lead, because Walter has such deep problems with women and like mommy issues. I do honestly would kind of love that in a Silent Hill 4 remake if you played as Eileen instead of Henry, and maybe she had to go rescue Henry because like he has put Eileen on that pedestal of being this like maternal figure because she gave him the doll when she was a kid. I think that would, I don't know. There's a lot to work with there. That is the curse of being a Silent Hill 4 fan, is like the bones are all there, but like they weren't really put together as well as they could have been. I'm very excited for Hanako. I think she'll be really cool. And just, to embrace the beauty of the horror. Ooh, that's what I'm all about. I love it. That is quintessentially what Silent Hill is to me, so I can't wait. Let me know what you think about this. I'm very excited. Obviously, I've said that a million times, but, I'll keep making videos as we get more info, but I'm super excited. I'm hopeful that it comes out this year. But I kind of feel like it's not gonna if they haven't given us a release date yet. And Konami is coming out with the Metal Gear Solid Delta, the Snake Eater remake, in August. So they may kind of be focusing on that instead. Hopefully early next year, if not this year. I'd like to thank my YouTube members. We have the Creepypasta OCs up on screen. And then in Survival Horror Emo, we have E-Rob and So-Called Punk. And then in Analog Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer and Alphacan. Thank you so much to my members. If you would like to become a member, there's a little join button next to subscribe, but liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, all that is wonderful. This is kind of a weird news recap video. This is like a bonus. I'm still gonna come out hopefully on Friday with a normal weekly internet horror video. But thank you so much for watching, and don't get lost in Silent Hill. Bye.